I recently attended a blowout vinyl record sale where I honestly didn't expect to find anything valuable. I was just flipping through some cheap records on sale for $1 each when I pulled out a record that sells for around $40. Now, a lot of people would assume this is the reason to shop dollar records, but finding rare vinyl is not really why we should dig through these crates. Hi, if you're new here, my name is Aaron and I make videos about collecting physical media. I also run a vintage booth where I buy and sell vinyl and CDs. So sure, finding an underpriced vinyl record that I can resell for a profit is fun, but that's not the reason why I keep going back to the cheap bins. With vinyl prices climbing, bargain crates are still one of the best ways to discover new music. So today I want to show you a few items I picked up, talk about what we can learn from cheap vinyl, and explain why, for us record collectors, shopping the dollar bins can be so rewarding. Now, before I explain to you why this particular album is worth $40 or more, and possibly why everyone at this sale overlooked it but me, I thought it'd be fun just to show you some of the items I bought. Now, this was a sale that a local record store was having. It was just a blowout sidewalk sale. Everything outside was $1, and there were crates and crates of records. And I had a really fun time just going through all those crates and trying to find things that I thought looked interesting to buy. Now, the thing that always jump out to me right away are just the amount of gimmicky records that you'll see when you're shopping through dollar bins, and a lot of them are just maybe too silly, but here are 3 examples of things I picked up. The first being Admiral stereo. Now, what jumped out to me here is where it says that it's featuring the Phantom 3rd channel. Now, you'll know on my channel here, I make a lot of videos about audio gear, especially vintage audio. So when I flipped this album over, I saw all of these pictures of sort of vintage audio gear. And what Admiral is, a lot of people may remember this, but they made stereo consoles in the 1960s. So think about those big pieces of furniture that had a record player and speakers built in. And this basically probably either came with it if you bought the console, or you could buy it to go with it. This is my best guess. I couldn't find an exact date. It's from the 1960s. And so we're going from mono sound to stereo sound. And that's exactly what this album is. I think the idea of this is you play this on your brand new console to learn about the magical sound of stereo. So each side starts with 2 songs where someone is talking, and they start in the left channel, then they go to the right channel, right channel, and they'll play music in the left channel, they'll play music in the right channel, and then all of a sudden it magically appears in the Phantom 3rd channel when they play it via stereo, which is something we're pretty common with. The music on this is actually all over the place. There's orchestra music, there's some jazz. There's actually an old Bill Haley and the Comets Joey song on here for early rock and roll fans. But what I enjoyed was there's a track from Rosemary Clooney, Goody Goody, and actually Carol Burnett singing Sweet Georgia Brown, which actually really surprised me. But this is just sort of a fun thing to listen to, and it's very gimmicky to kind of play around with your stereo and hear the way it kind of goes from speaker to speaker, left to right. I obviously couldn't pass up the 2 sides of Leonard Nimoy. Obviously, Star Trek fans will know what this is. I was actually surprised this was still there. Now, it's a little beat up, so that's probably why a lot of people left it. There's a slight warp to it, and there's a couple skips on the first side. And the first side is where Leonard Nimoy is singing songs as if he's Spock, this is actually his second release. I think this is from 1968. The first release is all about Spock. This one, side A, is songs for Spock. Side B is songs for just Leonard himself. Now, there's sort of like a viral thing going around right now with everyone talking about him singing the Ballad of Bilbo Baggins, and there's like a really cheesy video out on YouTube about it. You can actually go watch that. Side B actually plays through fine, so if I want to listen to the Ballad of Bilbo Baggins, I can do so. But this was just too fun to pass up for $1. Now, this is just silly. This is How to Make Your Husband a Sultan. This is a belly dance record. This is Turkish orchestration music, basically with the idea that, I don't know, you learn how to belly dance. The reason why I picked this up is because, I'll be honest with you, when I do when I sell at record fairs, I like to have a box called Weird and Wonderful, which is basically like obscure records. And I put these albums in with a little note on it explaining what it is. And I put like maybe $4 to $6 on each of them. And people really love buying these at record shows. It's just fun for them to do it. What's interesting about this is somebody went and cut and pasted pictures on the back. Like, why is Dave Matthews and Merle Haggard on here? And there's Madonna. Like, they cut out pictures of famous people and put them over the belly dancer. So I don't know how to explain that, but gimmick records are always fun to look for when shopping through those dollar bins. You're also going to find a lot of albums that are sort of international, or just basically a bunch of white dudes ripping off international sounds. But these two albums I could not pass up. Now the first is Los Rebeldes del Rock. Now that's actually the group name here. And I mean, just look at those guys right here on the cover. There's no reason you want to pass this up. It's called Rockin' Rebels. Now the story behind this is I think this is a band formed in Mexico in 1958. This album I think came out in the 60s. And this is basically them covering rock songs in English, or that we're used to hearing in English, but singing them in Spanish instead. Their big hit is La Hiedra Venenosa, which is basically the song Poison Ivy by the Coasters. If you're a big fan of listening to sort of early rock and roll or rockabilly, and you think it would be fun to hear those songs sung in Spanish, definitely check out this band. This is a beater copy. It does not play well at all, even after I cleaned it. But it was just really fun to listen to, and I'm going to keep my eye out for a better copy later on down the road to upgrade. I also found this compilation from 1987. It's called El Disco de Oro del Rock. And again, this is more bands from Mexico singing songs in Spanish that we're familiar with. The songs that jumped out to me, the groups are Los Teen Tops and Los Johnny Jets. Now, Los Teen Tops, the songs on here are La Plaga, which is basically a cover of Good Golly, Miss Molly, and El Rock de la Cárcel, Jailhouse Rock. So if you're an Elvis Presley fan and you want to hear a fun version of Jailhouse Rock in Spanish, definitely check out Los Teen Tops. And the Los Johnny Jets, they have a couple songs on here. The one I enjoyed the most was Es Lupe, which is basically them covering Hang On Sloopy. But now what this led me to want to do is look for those two groups when I'm out shopping. So I pulled those groups up in Discogs, found out that they have full-length albums, and saved them to my want list. Especially the Los Teen Tops, which I'll show a picture of that release here. Like, I think that would just be a really fun thing to listen to. But again, this has a couple great tracks for fans of rockabilly, early 1950s rock and roll, all sung in Spanish. The whole point of shopping these bins is trying to find music that might just look interesting, that you're unfamiliar with, and you basically take a complete gamble on it, and you have no idea if you're going to enjoy listening to it. And that's exactly what happened with this. This is Synergy, and the album is called Chords. Now, one of the reasons why I thought this might be cool is because it's actually on clear vinyl, and this is from the 70s, I believe. The other thing that made me want to give this a shot is because when I was reading all the instrumentation on the back, it's basically all electronic music. There is some association with Peter Gabriel and Robert Fripp, but it's a lot of Moog-based sounds, and everything is electronic. And now, Synergy is actually he's actually a gentleman named Larry Fast, who was sort of a kind of an early adapter to electronic music when he was making these albums. Now, here's the thing with this one. Not really for me. I took a gamble at $1, and I'm not actually sure that I will listen to this much anymore. The reason is because it's sort of like neoclassical. It's taking like Moog and electronic music and trying to make it really big and impressive, almost like in a classical way. And that's just not really my vibe. I kind of like that music a little bit to be a little bit more like chill or ambient. And this was just a little bit too much for me. But that's part of the fun of shopping these bins. Risk $1. If it doesn't quite work out, you can always give it to a friend or donate it back to the thrift store. One genre that you're going to find a lot of in the dollar bins is jazz. And at first, when you're sort of navigating through all of it, it's a bit overwhelming and you're not exactly sure what is good and worth buying and what is just bad. So again, this comes back to experimenting and just having to bring some things home and hoping it turns out okay. But the one that really grabbed my eye because I knew it's a great album is Bobby Humphrey's Blacks and Blues. Now, I own a really clean reissue copy of this, but this is like an OG copy. Now, as soon as I saw this, I thought, I bet this album is unplayable. It's probably so scratched up. And to be honest with you, doesn't look great. But for $1, I looked at it and I kind of ran my fingers over it. It was super dirty. And I thought, well, the scratches don't feel so deep that it'll skip. So I'm going to take a gamble. And I brought it home, cleaned it with an ultrasonic cleaner, and it actually plays through fine. There's a little bit of background noise, but it doesn't skip. Now, you'll see here on the cover, this is pretty kind of gross right there. So there's no way that this is like a super, super clean, valuable copy. If it was, it'd be worth about $30. Now, I just recently bought some records from some folks on Discogs who would have probably graded this as VG Plus and just said light wear on the cover. But that's a different video for a whole other time. There's no way this is a VG Plus album, but it did play through fine. And if somebody was just getting into jazz or just trying to figure out if jazz would be something they would listen to, this would be a great album to start with, and I paid $1. Another sort of fun jazz album that I picked up is this called Jazz Omnibus. This is just a compilation album from Columbia. It's from the 1950s. It's a 6-eye press. It's mono. I thought it would be fun just to have an early mono 50s press of a jazz compilation album. Turns out I'm not a huge fan of side 1, but side 2 actually surprised me. This is really early jazz from Dave Brubeck, J.J. Johnson, which actually has Max Roach on drums, the Jazz Messengers doing Cranky Spanky, which is obviously Art Blakey, but playing saxophone is Jackie McLean. Smoke Signal from Gigi Grice and very young Donald Byrd. He's actually just tagged as Don Byrd on this album. And then it ends with Miles Davis and his quintet doing Buddha, which has Philly Joe Jones on drums and John Coltrane playing saxophone. So side B was really a lot of fun to listen to on that. Great background music just from when I'm working from home. The other thing that I have really started picking up lately are sort of vocal jazz albums that will really kind of help me listen further and help tune and dial in my stereo gear, especially because I'm always adding and subtracting new things. And these are two albums that I just couldn't pass up. This is the Definitive Pearl Bailey. I thought this cover just looked awesome. Turns out this is from 1957. Again, it's a mono press on Columbia 6i. This is just a great compilation of Pearl Bailey's songs, who is a great singer and stage actress. This actually has a lot of standards on it, but she sings Baby It's Cold Outside on this, and she's singing with Hot Lips Page, which is actually just a great duet that's on here, but a lot of fun standards. Got to talk about this again here real quick, but I also found this really beautiful copy of Eartha Kitt's St. Louis Blues, which she actually stars in this movie, which is about W.C. Handy. Again, this is from 1957. This is actually a stereo press on RCA Victor. It's on Living Stereo, which a lot of people really like. It's a fairly clean copy, plays and sounds excellent. This is a lot of vocal jazz and standards. It's not a soundtrack to the movie. It's sort of like inspired by the movie. So she has a song on here called Steal Away, which is a spiritual track that she just sings by herself, and it's really a very powerful performance. It's all a cappella. She does have some people singing along with her, but there's no instruments, and it's just a really great, fun album. This is like perfect to play on a Sunday afternoon or Saturday when you're just hanging around the house and you're kind of tired of listening to all your records and you want to listen to something new. Now, what's interesting about St. Louis Blues is the other person who starred in that movie was actually Pearl Bailey, and that's what leads me to talking more about buying these dollar records, is because you can sit down with these, look them up, realize that these two albums alone are almost 70 years old. And if you're in any other kind of antique business, a 70-year-old item would be rather collectible and things that people would want to own. But for some reason, people just sort of write these dollar records off as not valuable. But again, over 70 years old, they both play great. They cleaned up really awesome. And what's fun for me is sitting down, doing some research, finding out what year they came out. Is it a mono press? Is it a stereo press? Just reading the back of all the different information on here. This makes me actually want to go watch St. Louis Blues about W.C. Handy. And finding the connection between these two was fun for me. It's just, if you just want a different experience by listening to your records rather than just throwing on your usual RL press of Led Zeppelin, which anybody can do, sit down, just educate yourself about the life of these artists, what was going on at the time they were recording these, and there's just a lot of great things you can learn about, and open your ears and mind to some music that you probably wouldn't have found if you hadn't been going through those cheap crates. So what makes this album worth $40? Well, what's interesting about this one is this was a 3-day sale. It was like Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and I just skipped the Friday because I knew all the pickers were going to be out on Friday. And sure, I am a picker to some extent because I run a booth in an antique mall, but I didn't want to get in the scrum with all those guys trying to pull out all the records so that they could make a quick buck or two. I was like, you know what? I'm just going to wait till the last day and see if I really find anything interesting that I want to listen to first and foremost. If I stumble on something of value, great. That's what happened. This is Jazz at the Pawn Shop. Now, all those guys that I was talking about earlier, they're all getting there trying to find the copies of, I don't know, Dire Straits or Black Sabbath or Led Zeppelin or just whatever rock band there is. Like, that's what they're looking for. And so this Jazz at the Pawn Shop is something that they would easily look over. Now, as these sales go, they often put things out, later on. So there's a good chance a lot of those guys showed up and this one wasn't out yet, and then the store put it out later. But I was super excited when I found this because I knew about this legendary live recording, and that's what makes this so popular and sought after. This is sort of like an audiophile dream recording. The jazz on this album it's not that great in my opinion. You're not sitting down listening to some awesome Blue Note or Prestige or Riverside performance, but this was recorded by a gentleman named Gert Palmerantz, actually in Sweden, in a venue that was a pawn shop before it became a music venue. And he went down there and set up his microphones and recording gear, and over a couple of nights recorded all this, and they put it together, and people just love the way it sounds. It's really live. It's very punchy. You can tell where the instruments are in the room. You can actually hear people like clinking their glasses and putting down their forks and talking a little bit and laughing. There's just, the environment is very much captured in this live recording. It is so legendary that there's just like a full description of the microphones this person used, how he set them up, where he placed them in the room. Every single thing you could want to know about how he recorded it is on here. And this album sells for around $40. I paid $1 for it. I don't quite think I could get $40 for it. There's some split seams here on the top. This is a 2 LP set, and one has some very light edge warp. Doesn't make it skip, but it also doesn't make it a pristine copy. So I don't know, I could maybe get like 20 or 30 bucks for it, but I haven't quite decided if I'm gonna sell it yet or not. I actually have a copy of this on CD that, thinking about this now, I way overpaid for. But that's what makes this one worth $40 in case you're interested. This was just fun to find because, like I said, I bought over 50 albums that day for just over $50 with tax. And if I do decide to sell this off, that just means that now I have a lot of great records that really probably only cost me more like $20. I'd love to know in the comments what kind of dollar records you found in the past, and if you have found any that might have turned out to be ultra rare, or just something that after you listened to it, you really fell in love with it, and just it encouraged you to keep shopping those dollar records with the hope that you might find something else like that you fell in love with. Please let me know in the comments below. Now, again, like what I mentioned earlier, this is just such a great way to find new music that you'll probably very rarely stumble on while listening to streaming services or shopping the regular crates at a record store. I've actually made a whole video about how important it is to get out of the algorithms when trying to discover new music and give you a few tips on how to do so. If you'd be interested in checking out that video, you can do so by clicking here.